Hello and welcome to the virtual public meeting for the I84 Danbury Planning and Environment Linkages, or PEL for short, study. We'll get started in just a few minutes. People are still coming into the room. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the virtual public meeting for the I84 Danbury Planning and Environment Linkages, or PEL for short, study. My name is Marcy Miller, and I'll serve as the facilitator for today's meeting. I'm with FHI Studio and part of the study team. The time is 12:03 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll now start the meeting. Welcome. I'll provide an overview of the format for our meeting this afternoon. I'm going to suggest a few tips on how to best participate in this virtual meeting. I know many of you are familiar with Zoom, but I'll briefly review a few tips to help you navigate our meeting today. This is a Zoom webinar as opposed to a Zoom meeting. It is slightly different than some more informal Zoom meetings that you may have participated in. To preserve bandwidth and have a smoother virtual meeting experience, you may want to close other programs that are running on your computer. If you have any issues with Zoom during the meeting, we have a technical support person available to assist you. You can reach this person, Cassandra Valcourt, by email at cassandrajvalcourt@imegcorp.com. I will spell that if anyone has called in. It's CASSANDRA.J.VALCOURT&IMEGCORP.com. You can also use the Q&A feature if you need technical help with Zoom. If you are disconnected at any point during this meeting or are having bandwidth issues with your internet, there is an option to telephone into the meeting. You can use the toll-free number on your screen to access the meeting if you are disconnected, or joining via phone is simply a better option for you. That number is 646-558-8656. If you telephone in, you'll need to enter the meeting ID, which is 826-6452-9722. The passcode is 575286. Zoom is generating closed captions for this meeting that should be showing up at the bottom of your screen. If you are seeing them and want to turn them off, or if you are not seeing them and want to turn them on, you can do so by clicking the button on your Zoom toolbar that says CC. Excuse me. In addition, interpretation into Spanish and Portuguese captions is available by clicking on the interpretation button in the menu bar. This meeting is being recorded. If you do not wish to be part of a recorded meeting, please go ahead and disconnect. The recording and transcript will be posted on the project website. Currently, 11 members of the public are participating in the meeting. After I wrap up this short introduction, I will turn it over to the team to provide an overview of the I84 Danbury Pell study. After that, we will turn to the discussion session when members of the public will have the opportunity to share comments. Today, all participants are placed on mute until the discussion period, which will follow the short presentation. During the discussion period, there are two ways that you can provide feedback or ask a question. The first is through raising your hand to speak aloud to the study team and all participants. We will also accept and respond to your written questions during the discussion period. During the discussion period, we will do our best to alternate attendee participation between the raised hand speaking method and the Q&A written method. Our goal is to get feedback from everyone today. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. After the presentation and at the beginning of the discussion period, I'll invite anyone here to share a comment. You can indicate that you would like to share a comment by raising your hand. You'll be identified with a yellow hand toward the top of the participant list. This means that you are requesting to speak aloud. If you are not seeing the raised hand in your Zoom toolbar, you may need to click on participants in your Zoom toolbar, and the button will show up at the bottom of the window in the participants pane. Please turn this function on so you can see when your turn is coming up. If you call in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and we will call on you that way. When it is your turn to speak, I will call out your name. We will then request that you unmute yourself. Please click unmute before you begin speaking. When we unmute you, please state your name slowly and, if possible, spell your first and last name for us. If applicable, please indicate any organization that you are affiliated with. Please be mindful of time so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. Please note, if your comments are lengthy, you can also submit them in writing. We will identify the ways to do this later in the presentation. All comments provided today will be taken into consideration by CTDOT. The comments you make will be recorded and summarized in a meeting summary. We will also take written questions throughout the meeting. Members of the project team will provide answers to your submitted questions. Please submit all questions via the Q&A button in Zoom. Representatives of the media can direct media inquiries to the Connecticut Department of Transportation Office of Communications at ctdotmedia@ct.gov. That reads as ctdotmedia@ct.gov. Our intent is that no person on the basis of race, color, or national origin shall be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. CTDOT has more information in a civil rights flyer at, and I'll read the website, https://bit.ly/CTDOT-CIVIL-RIGHTS. CTDOT is also asking members of the public to visit and complete a demographic survey at https://bit.ly/CTDOT-FEEDBACK. We are adding these links to the chat feature in Zoom. Actually, to the Q&A. Correction.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Burnham. I'm the project manager for this project. With me here today is Krishalyn Macron, who is the project engineer. I have the Neil Patel, who is the principal engineer for the major highways unit. Mike Calabrese is not here with us today in this meeting, but we do have members of our consultant team. Sharat Kaluri, who is the project manager, And we have Janine Armstrong-Gowan who is responsible for the environmental documentation, along with her team of Rick Black and Joe Rubino. And Marcy has been providing the introduction here. She is in charge of community engagement. So our agenda for today is to talk a little bit briefly about the study background and why we undertook this PAL, go through the screening process of how we looked at all the different concerns in the study, briefly go over the different concepts that we have in the different segment areas, and how that came to be looking at the larger projects and also looking at some potential breakout projects, and then the schedule, and there will be an opportunity for discussion and Q&A. So Janine will start taking us through the study background.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. So hi, everyone. I'm Janine, as Kevin said. I'll start us off today, and we've got lots of really good information to share with you. As Marcy indicated, PEL stands for Planning and Environment Linkages, and it's a process under the Federal Highway Administration that streamlines transportation planning. And the PEL really aims to align municipal, regional, and statewide transportation planning efforts such that they are congruent and complementary. It considers things like in the environment, community, economic goals, and tries to do that early in the transportation planning process. A key element of PEL is the interaction with community members and stakeholders, and such as yourself. Some of you have been in meetings previous. I recognize some of your names. But through this process, we've held several community information meetings. We've engaged with a project advisory committee, or PAC, as we call them, which includes local government representatives, businesses, stakeholders, organizations, neighborhood groups, and the like. And we've held a number of pop-up meetings at various venues throughout Danbury and the surrounding area to really understand the concerns and ideas that the folks in the community have. So as you can see in this graphic, this is our PEL study area. It's about a 10-mile portion of the I84 corridor. It extends slightly beyond the New York State border to the west and slightly beyond Interchange 8 to the east, going towards Newtown. Next slide, thanks. So the PEL study is really the initial element and a progression of actions towards developing one or more viable projects. So through the PEL study, which we will spend the majority of our meeting today talking on, we've identified and evaluated a number of potential projects, and we've analyzed their feasibility, and we'll present those to you in greater detail today. But there's a number of other processes that come along as well. Once the PEL study is concluded, and we're right at the precipice of concluding that, the next phase will consist of the environmental study and analysis through two different federal and a state act, the National Environmental Policy Assessment, or NEPA, and the Connecticut Environmental Policy Act, which is SEPA. Actually, they're both acts. So through these processes, the alternatives that we'll talk about today are thoroughly vetted for potential human and environmental impacts. And then the next key element after NEPA and SEPA review involves regulatory permitting and design from the engineering perspective. And then finally, we go to construction, possibly in phases, depending on the size and the extent of the improvements and the number of projects. So that's just a very high level overview of the process. Now we're good to go to the next one. So if you spent any amount of time driving on 84 or through the city of Danbury, you have very likely experienced and observed heavy congestion and poor mobility. This will be new to no one who's spent some time in the area. So congestion is exactly what you would probably guess it is: slow moving, stop and go traffic, or periods of completely stopped traffic, and it happens often. On 84, the primary causes of congestion are these four: heavy traffic volumes, highway design deficiencies, weaving, and crashes. Traffic volumes on I84 are much heavier than what the highway was designed to accommodate many decades ago when it was designed. And we've seen a steady increase in traffic volumes over the past years that has contributed to congestion and delays. But that's not the only thing. So highway design deficiencies, again, this is a highway that was designed in the 1960s, would not be designed the same way today if we were to do it. But some of the deficiencies that we've identified include things like sharp curves and hills, interchanges, exits that are closely spaced, insufficient shoulder widths. And one of the things that you experience quite often if you travel through this, which is a lack of lane continuity, where you go from 2 lanes to 3 and then back to 2, and then you've got an on-ramp and you go back to 3 again. So we have a lot of inconsistencies on lane continuity. Weaving is that particularly occurs on I84 as a result of the left-hand exits and the Route 7 merging, where a vehicle like enters the highway from one side and then you quickly need to get over and across several lanes of traffic to get to the other side to take the exit. And you can see those underneath on the left-hand side illustrated in those two graphics. And then finally crashes, which obviously result in congestion. In this case, it's really exacerbated by the lack of alternative off-highway routes through Danbury. Like when traffic is jammed on the highway, there's just not a lot of east-west roadways that go in a straight line that parallel the highway to get you around and through the crash area. So that's congestion. On the other side of the equation is poor mobility, which is the inefficiency of moving people and goods to and through the greater Danbury area. And it's also attributed to a number of things, including the grid through Danbury that doesn't provide very good east-west technical alternatives, poor connectivity between the highway and some of the key local destinations like downtown and the hospital, increased highway demand, which also exacerbates poor mobility, and the lack of alternative travel modes, things like robust bus, rail, bicycle, and pedestrian lanes. So all of these are things that we've seen on the highway. In order for us to better analyze the different issues along I84 and in the adjacent corridor, we broke the study area up into 4 distinct segments as shown on this graphic. So the main line, which runs along the full study area from left to right on this graphic, is shown in blue. Sharat's showing it in the red. The west segment is shown in green. The center segment is shown in gray, and then the eastern segment is shown in orange. And we broke the highway up in this manner to enable us to assess how individual concepts can address the unique needs in a distinct area within the 10-mile corridor. And again, we're going to spend a good amount of time getting into the details of what those concepts were and what the issues were. Go to the next one. So the Pell analysis began with 26 separate concepts or improvements. Each of these were aimed at addressing the 2 main areas of deficiency, which is congestion and mobility issues. We had 7 concepts on the main line. We had 3 in the west segment, 9 in the center, and 7 in the east segment. And concepts included things like interchange and ramp improvements, some highway modifications to create continuous or express lanes. We looked at interchange improvements, transit options, a wide variety of strategies that focused on operational improvements, travel management solutions, and then a number of alternatives that included something called a collector distributor road, which is just a roadway that collects traffic from the exit ramp and distributes it to a local roadway. Typically, it's in parallel to the highway. So we want to back up a half a sec. How did we come up with these concepts? Well, we had lots of meetings. We had workshops with the city, with the public, with the PAC, state and federal stakeholders, with DOT, with FHWA, the consulting team, a whole bunch of others. And each of these concepts or potential improvements was analyzed through a 3-tier process. The first is a fatal flaw analysis, and that's just simply looking to determine if the concept was consistent with either reducing congestion and or improving mobility, if it was feasible from a construction or a cost perspective, and if it had the potential for excessive or disproportional environmental or community impacts. And so we ran all 26 of the concepts through that. 15 of them advanced to the second tier of our analysis, which was a redundancy analysis. And that determined if the concept achieved a similar function as one of the other concepts, but without a clear advantage, or with maybe greater construction or operational or environmental disadvantages. So things that were redundant and not necessarily advantageous. And of the 15, 11 of those concepts advanced to the third tier of screening, which consisted of a screening matrix. And in that, we evaluated engineering and environmental aspects of each of those concepts to look at their performance and their potential impact. And 8 of those concepts advanced. So from the 26 original concepts, 12 of those went forward and we combined them. So now remember, we had the main line, the west, center, and east. And so we put them together to address full alternatives through the length of our 10-mile study area, including all those segments. So 12 of those discrete, what we call concept combinations, were analyzed, and we put them back through the 3-tier process of looking at fatal flaw, redundancy, and screening of those combined concepts. And out of that came 3 what we call reasonable alternatives that went into the study report. Those were recommended. We also identified a number of breakout projects, which are individual projects that could move forward independent of and separate from those 3 main alternatives. And we'll talk about those a little bit today as well. So this is a little bit of our screening process. What we're really going to focus on now is those things that filtered through the screening process and share a little bit more about what those involve. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Kevin to start delving into the improvement concepts.
Thank you, Janine. So as Janine said, we had these different geographic areas which had different concerns and different problems. The first area we're going to talk about here is the main line, which primarily was a problem of congestion. And so the overall problem that we had with this that Janine mentioned is a problem of lane continuity where lanes would drop and come back on. And this project will, this alternative connects all those broken bits and has continuous lanes throughout the project area. You can go to the next slide there, Sharad. So in this concept in the interchange 3 area does deal with getting that lane continuity between the interchange 3 and 4. But there's also some of those design things that were fine back in when it was designed, but not so good now are 2 things here. One, go on to the next there. We have these left-hand, there's these left-hand ramps, which in this case would be switched over to right-hand. So we have this one that is shown in red that is going for 84 west and down to 7 south. And then we have this one where it splits off on 7 south and now switches over to the right side of I84 going to the west, which they were not previously. Also, the next thing here, if you advance, you see that we had this curve that was kind of flattened out to kind of normalize the speed through there so you don't get this backed up traffic as they slow through a curve. When we look at the next part of the interchange pairs on 5 and 6, this is mostly just working through the lane continuity with those brakes. So there's not much else going on in this area. In the interchange 7 area, similarly, we do correct some of that lane continuity, but again, like interchanges 3 and 4, we deal with a left-hand exits brought back to the right-hand exit. Also, and that is these 2 here that are shown in red and blue. Next is also dealing with some of the traffic that is coming from Route 7 southbound and merging with 84, and that's making a provision for that to be 2 lanes of traffic there to help ease some of the backups. Go to the west concept. We in this one, we were dealing. No, oh here. Don't seem to have the west. So we'll talk about, we're somehow missing the thing. So we'll try to get back to that. But these are actually the different concepts of the center section. So those dealt mostly with different access problems. So go back to the other one that seems to be mislabeled, Sharat, but if we back up one slide, this one is a scenario, a concept that looks to better connect the two. Oh, he's jumping to that. Well, I'll wait till you get to that if you're going to get to that right slide. So are we sticking with this one, or are we going to go to?
Stick with 6. Stick with.
Okay, so in this case, there were 3 in the center section. There were a lot of access problems in that middle area, and we had 3 ways to look at them. The first one, well, the one that you see here is one that provides full access interchange at Tamarack Avenue. This would provide ramps that from both directions that would provide better direct hospital access in both directions. The other possibility is to use a partial interchange at the Great Plains Road interchange. Let me jump here if you're having a problem there.
Yeah, it's kind of lagging a bit. So
yeah, I'm going to jump here for a second and present my one so that we give me just a second for it to come up. Does everybody see that screen now?
not yet.
It's sharing your Windows, a blue Windows screen right now,
Oh,
Kevin.
sorry about that.
It might be on the wrong window.
Yep, and it's not getting over to the right.
There you go. Well, now it's showing center concept C13, Great Plains.
Okay, so that's back with Sharat, right? That's you, Sharat?
Yeah.
Okay, so this center concept is showing access to the highway from to Great Plain Road, which does provide some better hospital access, but the disadvantage of this compared to Tamarack is that it only is providing these partial ramps, so the access to and from the west is good, but the east does not get that same benefit. If you can try to get back to that north, here we are on this third center concept, which look to better connect some of the business areas, the downtown access to the downtown business areas by creating a collector distributor road between exits 5 and 6 and adding some new ramps to complete the interchange at the North Street. If you found it and if you can get back to the west, that would be good. Oh, here's another view of that, how that center concept would work with a little aerial view where you can see that. If you can try to get back to that west.
Yeah, I'm going to pull the west one quickly.
Yep.
Just have to share a different screen.
Yep.
A second.
So the West was dealing with a problem of the weaving, which Janine talked about how there were because of the way that some of these interchanges are set up, traffic. We have this overlap between this area that 7 and 84 overlap, and because of that, to get to the right, with these left-handed exits, you're having a number of these weaving sections which cause conflicts. And if you can see here, this particular alternative would add this new ramp at Seeger Street. So for those coming on eastbound 84, would take off this new ramp at Seeger Street, and that's how they would get now to the area of exit 4. And the highway itself would have a median barrier between 84 and 7 so that that traffic wouldn't be weaving to go into the exit 4 over there at Lake Avenue. Now, if we could get on to back to the east side.
Just share my other screen.
Okay. The east side, again, was dealing with some of those weaves. We looked at putting in a number of collector distributor roads. And again, by keeping the traffic on those collector distributor roads, it some way prevents some of that weaving going on. Okay, here we are at the center, and here we are here back to the east concept. So here you see that we add a collector distributor road. Those are those green lines paralleling 84, and they help better distribute that traffic with preventing some of those weaves and adding a couple new ramps in there as well. It also does a little bit to address the curvature in the road in this section. And there's some local street improvements, which we'll talk a little bit more. I'll leave that till we have a little more detailed description when we talk about the breakout projects. So that kind of, we're getting into the breakout projects now. So those were those groups that were those concept combinations that Janine talked about going through the screening process. She also talked about a number of breakout projects so that we could, all those projects are, they could take some time. They have some expense and time duration in there. So we're looking at some other breakout projects. So the first one we're going to talk about, that I'm going to talk about, is the dynamic lane use. This would be looking at this area here that you see in orange from a little bit west of interchange 3 to up into the beyond into interchange 8 and up 7. In that 7 area, we do try to immediately address some of that other part of the project that we talked about by adding additional lanes there, which are on the inset map. I think there might be, here we go. So we we look to, by adding some capacity with this this dynamic lane, we will have opportunity to open up this on-ramp as well. So what is a dynamic lane? So I think we're going to see that in the next one here. The dynamic lane is basically looking to take that median shoulder and allowing that to be used as a temporary travel lane only when it is warranted by the congested conditions. We don't want free flow traffic going in there. So this would show kind of the cross section in both directions, and we'll step through how that would go in operation in the next slides here. So when we're in free flow, as I said, we don't want to have that traffic moving in that shoulder. Traffics are flowing at the normal speeds, and there would be a lane use sign that would close off the shoulder. The next, when the traffic begins to get congested on the interstate, there would be conditions that we would see back at the operations center that would say that this is now warranted to use as a travel lane. And then we would open it, and a green arrow would go there, and that would reduce the congestion. It wouldn't eliminate the congestion and go free flow. If it does start to get back to free flow, the lane would be closed again. And so with that, that's kind of a summary of that. That's something that we're also calling a flex lane. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you on this? So that's the reason that this is, we see this addressing a lot of the congestion problems quickly. We're not taking any more right of way. We're being able to build this out with far less lengthy modifications. We do have to put up sign structures. We do have to do some pavement work, but this is still within the right of way of the highway, and could get done on a much quicker schedule. We do have some other breakouts that Sharat will go into now.
Thanks, Kevin. So besides the dynamic lane use, which is also called flex lane, we looked at other, like Janine said, there was a concern with improving mobility in the corridor and improving local mobility specifically. We looked at other modes, and I'm going to talk about some of the work we put in to look at some other modes of travel and start with the bicycle plan. So throughout the project corridor for this entire section of about 10 miles or so, we looked at all parallel roadways and intersecting roadways in the corridor to see what type of opportunities exist for providing bicycle facilities. These are not only state roads, but even local roads within the city of Danbury, and how we can improve those bicycle connections. This slide here just shows one portion of the bicycle plan. We have, in fact, a bicycle plan at an early level that kind of shows all the areas within the city of Danbury. I'm kind of sharing this one because this has more emphasis on why this area was considered to be more important. As we looked at this section of 84, there was opportunities that came upon us through talking to the city and other stakeholders that Mill Plain Road is a potential opportunity for providing those bicycle facilities. And we did move forward with looking at Mill Plain Road and trying to see how we can not only maximize the use of the existing pavement, but also see the potential for combining the bicycle and the pedestrian facilities. Also a lack of missing sidewalks along Mill Plain Road from the state line all the way up to interchange 4 at Lake Avenue. As you can see in some of these places, there's driveways and other kinds of competing areas. The idea was to install what's called a side path, which is essentially a term for a mixed use path, which is a bicycle facility and a sidewalk together. And we have prepared a plan showing how the side path is going to work from the New York line to Lake Avenue. Again, this is an initial plan that is still being worked on with the city, but again, showing opportunities of how we can improve the non-vehicular mobility on Mill Plain Road. We also looked at transit, and especially transit being bus transit. As you know, HART operates the transit services within the city of Danbury. There are a lot of services now in the city that are going through a pulse point in downtown. People have to transfer when they're making these trips from one end of the city to the other end of the city. There's also services that go to the Harlem line in New York and there to Brewster. So we looked at a comprehensive socioeconomic data in terms of employment and population areas, and we found that most of the folks within the city of Danbury are traveling within 7 towns highlighted in orange. There's not a lot of regional, like outside of the city of Danbury, going to like New York and other places, but a lot of the focus is mostly within this 8-town area. So we looked at existing services, and we have at a high level recommended some more regional services and highlighted in green, like connecting from New Milford to Norwalk, kind of complementing the 7 commuter rail service going to Norwalk. Also looking at the improving the connection from Southbury. There's a good amount of population in Southbury that goes through this area as well. So kind of how we can improve that connection from Southbury to Brewster and then provide that connection to the rail station in Brewster. This is again a very initial plan. There has to be more analysis done, more effort done in identifying specific schedules, looking at transfer points. In blue, what you see is a local service that we recommended, and this is essentially to eliminate that transfer service as people now, if you're coming from New Milford and want to go to the mall, a lot of the times you would have to transfer over at the pulse point. So this circulator service enables you to make one-stop service, getting access to transit faster and getting to the destinations you would want to go. A third breakout project or fourth breakout project is the Interchange 8. So this is the area of Interchange 8 east of the existing Route 7 merge at exit 7. We call this a turtleback interchange. It looks like a turtleback, but the whole concept here is to improve circulation within the interchange area. As you know, this is a east and west kind of road. It's a one-way eastbound, one-way westbound. A lot of people who come down from Newtown Road, from where the shopping and retail is, they turn right on Route 6 and they would have to turn around and go west on Newtown to get back to the highway if you're going towards New York. The concept here, which is a relatively new concept for Connecticut, is to look at how we can switch that service, switch that movement to the left side. What that enables us to do is to eliminate this amount of traffic that kind of circulates around, goes to these gas stations and comes back on, to put them on a separate roadway on the left and merge them back to the highway. So they don't have to travel this entire length of Route 6 to get back on the highway. Also providing a better access from Route 6 onto 84 East and providing better connections from Route 6 as you're coming from the Target side. So again, this concept looks at providing a better circulation pattern along this Route 6 Newtown Road area and not allowing traffic to make these unnecessary movements where they're destined to the highway or they're destined to local points within this area. So I think the idea is here again to make that mobility benefit within that Interchange 8 area. The last of the breakout projects I'll talk about is the Main Street, North Street, and Down Street. And this project is getting a lot of traction. We kind of made a lot of progress on this in terms of meeting with the community, which I'll talk in a second. When we looked at this intersection, which is the kind of the center point of the city where all the traffic kind of comes together. As you know, there's no exit 6 eastbound on 84 as you come from New York. And you can't get back on 84 going west. You're going west back to New York. And a lot of the traffic now comes to Downs, goes to Main or North, depending on where they're headed to. So this intersection just becomes very complex, where it's congested, a lot of crashes, a lot of accident data that we noted from here. Also, we noted that Main Street, as you come underneath the highway, has got a sightline problem. Because it's very hard to look at the traffic light that exists today. So we reached out to the community back in early August, late July, and we had a questionnaire that we posed at the community, which kind of, a lot of the results we got from the questionnaire that kind of matched with what the data said is they all identified traffic delays as a big concern. Speeding is a concern, especially when it's not a congested time period. They mentioned about the sight lines along Main Street as a big concern, and just in general about markings and other types of areas. And that was the kind of focus of us to get that feedback from the community and kind of see how we can advance a concept through this area. The other question we posed about Down Street was to see whether there's an interest to convert Down Street from a two-way into a one-way street. And this would be the portion of Down Street from Farview all the way up to Main Street, and kind of gauging the community in terms of what they felt. 2/3 of the community, we had 160 responses. 2/3 of the responses we got were in favor of either supporting the idea or they love the idea, which was very positive for us to understand, because that does, Down Street does have a lot of traffic that comes from the ramps. So again, this is one of the projects, as I said, is being looked at very closely. There's been support from the city to move this concept forward. That I'll turn it over to Neil.
Thanks, Sharat. So looking ahead to what a typical schedule that may be possible for the range of alternatives for the I84 corridor improvements, the environmental review phase is typically 2 to 3 years, and that's followed by, for the magnitude of this type of project, would be followed by extensive design right away and permitting phase, and a series of construction projects that would take several years given the over 10-mile corridor. What we do want to focus on, we started to already, is some of the near-term goals, as Kevin mentioned, in providing some near-term congestion relief on I84 in a shorter time frame as it pertains to some of that, especially some of the congestion in the core of the corridor between 3 and 7. And so we've started some of that preliminary work on the DLU, which is now going forward going to be called the flex lane. And you'll start to see some more public outreach, some more meetings very soon in the near time frame, by the end of summer, hopefully in the beginning of fall. Hoping to continue that design into 2027 and get to construction in 2028. Similarly, we want to implement some of those intersection improvements that Sharat just talked about at Main and Downs to address some of the congestion and operations at that intersection. So that schedule is setting up for construction possibly in 2030, 2031. I'm going to continue to evaluate the Mill Plain Road side path. We met with the city and we're going to continue that, and then do some more outreach before we look for funding and initiate a project. And as Sharat mentioned, for the bus transit options, we do need to continue discussions with our Bureau of Public Transportation and our transit providers to do a comprehensive service analysis that could take a few years. So with that, I think we have wrapped it up. Apologize for some of the technical difficulties, but we've got, we've got time here for Q&A, and we've got time to even go back to some of those and, take a look at some of those segments that may have been a little confusing during the presentation. So we're here as long as it takes to answer questions. So I'm going to just turn it over to Marcy to kind of moderate.
All right, thanks, Neil. So now we will move on to our discussion period. As I mentioned earlier, we will alternate between what comes in writing via the Q&A and people who raise their hands. We do have one comment that has come in. I will read them all aloud. So if people want to listen to the audio later, it's on record there as well. So our first question that has come in is from Micah Chen, and it says, to clarify, is the DLU anticipated to be a static open close based on the time of day, or will it be based on density, speed, some sort of metric that will trigger it or to open or close? So I'll turn this over to the department, possibly. Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Marcy. So yes, so it's not going to be there will likely be a time of day window that a trigger will be based on speed or density. Some sort of congestion conditions will be monitored, and it will open only for those conditions where it's warranted. We're not going to open it just strictly on a time of day basis.
Thank you. All right, we have another written question from Charlie Callahan. This says, how do we speed up the timeline? Can the red tape be cut? The timeline is agonizingly long.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, I think, we deal with this on all of our major projects, given the extent, and then especially in this case, you've got a 10-mile corridor. So, there really is, we've got to follow the state and federal regs to get through the process, to implement those improvements. And again, right, this is as with any construction project in the state, we've got to maintain traffic while we try to construct the project. So that adds time, even when you're in construction, I'm sure everybody's aware of that, traveling around the state and even in the region. So that's kind of why, again, we're looking at these near-term improvements and especially with the flex lane and trying to implement that in a quicker time frame here to get some congestion relief while we continue to evaluate even the long-term alternatives.
Great. Thank you, Neil. All right, another question has come in writing. It's from an anonymous attendee, and it says, how will the exit 4 westbound exit be addressed, as it is tough to get over?
Sure, exit 4 westbound. That's dealing with Lake Avenue.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to the slide.
Yeah, we can go to that and talk about some of the improvements if you want to talk about, especially with just reviewing the removal of the left-hand exits for Route 7 South and what happens there.
Yeah. So I think the question specifically is related to when the person said to get over. I think the concern is the weaving between 84 westbound to 7 south, or even looking at 84 eastbound to get to Lake Avenue. So in terms of the ramps itself, we are switching the ramps on the main line from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, and and on the eastbound direction to get from 84 eastbound to Lake Avenue. When you make that exit, it's a pretty quick exit as you move over from 84 eastbound to exit 4. What we are looking to do there is, I'm going to share my other screen, is to provide access to Seeger Street, to provide a new ramp off of 84 to Seeger Street, which allows the 84 traffic to get off at Seeger Street and not have to be part of that traffic that wants to get to exit 4. Because that's the concern that you have today, is when you're coming on 84 and want to get off the Lake Avenue, you have to move over at least 2 lanes, and there's a lane drop right at the merge. So the Seeger Street ramp allows someone to get off at Seeger Street and prevents someone or prohibit someone to make that exit at exit 4. We would provide a physical median barrier that would prevent anyone from 84 to get to Lake Avenue. They would have to take the Seeger Street exit to do that, because that's a pretty bad movement to make today, because there's a lot going on. There's the 84 traffic trying to go, there's a 7 traffic merging, and there's a lane drop, or you lose a lane right between the 2 exits.
Sure. I mean, and I think more so westbound was the question. So exit 4 westbound is not really going to change. You'll still have that. That will still be an exit for Lake Avenue on the westbound direction.
Correct. Exit 4 in the westbound direction will remain, so the ramp that takes you to Lake Avenue today, which will remain. It'll come off of 84 and then tie into Lake Avenue. So there's not going to be any change on exit 4. As you can see, that's kind of the ramp that you see there. That's the ramp is going to still remain. And the movement that you make to exit 3, which is kind of related to exit 4, the moving over westbound is going to be switched, will be much better, because the ramps in this plan would be shifted over to the right side, which will help that movement better as you're getting off the 7 south.
So you'd sort of have a back-to-back. You'd have exit 4 for Lake Avenue going westbound, and immediately after that, you'd have the right-hand exit for Route 7 South.
Correct.
Okay, we have 2 more questions in the queue. And again, I want to just throw out a reminder to our attendees that you're also welcome to raise your hand and talk to us, but typing questions in is perfectly fine. So I'll move on to our next question. It's from Micah Chen, and it reads, is there any anticipation or expectation to coordinate with New York State Department of Transportation to coordinate improvements up to and including the I-684 interchange, which is where most would argue the corridor begins? The bridge over Dingle Ridge Road has already been widened to be able to carry 3 lanes in each direction a number of years ago.
Yeah, I can answer that. I think as the alternatives, the range of alternatives proceeds into that next phase, into the environmental review phase, that's going to be that discussion as far as what the continuity is going through into New York State. Obviously, we don't have that jurisdiction, but coordination, obviously, we have had NIMTech, I believe, on as part of the pack. So, we'll continue that coordination as it gets into the environmental review phase, as we start to get into more details of those long-range alternatives. In fact, looking ahead, there could be some additional alternatives that are introduced into the range of alternatives in the environmental review. So that'll all be part of that in that future phase.
And I'll just add, Neil, that early on, back when the project started, we were involved with New York State DOT to coordinate some of that efforts. And one of the reasons the project limits were extended to the New York line was kind of talk about the 684 section of the New York side of 84. So there was some early coordination done in terms of understanding what each of the states are doing in terms of the project.
Thank you. Next question is from an anonymous attendee, and it says, how many people do you expect to use a new bus or bike lanes? How is return on investment measured?
Sure. Do you want to just talk about high level in terms of on the buses? I don't know if we really do a mode shift for on bike lanes, but if you want to talk a little bit about
certainly
how we did this.
So we did a very high level bus analysis. So as you kind of see, there's a recommendation to advance a more detailed service plan analysis for the bus transit options, and also to get better sense of how these transfers are going to happen, which is what's driving a lot of the ridership information. So we did an early level analysis of the ridership benefits you would get for any mode shift potentially, and we did not see a significant shift. The whole focus of this analysis was to kind of see if the buses would complement the highway improvements or would be a benefit over the highway improvements, because we were hoping that there'll be more mode shift happening between people driving a single occupant car, which is about 95% of the people in this corridor are single occupants. So they're people driving by themselves in a car, which is not a great thing for a corridor. And we were hoping that more people would shift over to bus transit, and we did not see a big shift or jump. And that's primarily because of the way the access to transit happens, is where people want to get to the bus as close as they are from where they live. And it requires some time for them to walk to the bus stop, get a bus, and then transfer themselves and then go to another bus. And that's not a great way to commute. I think when the next phase of this study will go through and where we do a much more comprehensive transit analysis, where those transfers are looked at in much more detail and how the frequencies could be improved, we could potentially see some benefit, but we just don't see that level of ridership that's going to drive that the buses are going, like in the southwest part of the state, that buses or transit is going to drive a significant portion of this section of 84. And also on the bike stuff, quickly, Neil, we did not look at any mode shift there. It was mainly to provide that folks who are doing short trips, especially in the western side where you have Western State University campus, and connecting them to short distance trips.
Right. Yeah, I think that this just improved connectivity, right? It's about mobility, and we're doing that around the state as much as possible. We can provide those connections, especially when you look at something like Mill Plain Road as well. We're focusing on and between the commercial retail aspect, and you have Westcon there, a residential component south of 84 there that can connect into that corridor. So that is probably the focuses, and the benefit of that is just, again, like we said, improved connectivity and mobility.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next question is from Neil Hunt. Says, if there is electronic monitoring of congestion and speed, can the design include speed cameras with ticketing to help enforce the speed limit and promote public safety? Speeding is rampant today with no signs of police enforcement.
I'll take that, Marcy. So yes, we are looking at a variety of mechanisms to, when the flex lane would be in effect, that there might be some other ways that data is coming in about the speed, and it would be different than what would be an enforcement tool. But we are looking at those enforcement tools as part of that and considering how that would be able to be implemented, particularly when the flex lane is in fact when we really want to see some speed harmonization of that of the traffic at those congested things, and we don't want to see somebody racing down the shoulder that we open for that reason. So that is going to be part of our consideration.
Thank you. All right, next written question is from an anonymous attendee. What environmental review is needed for opening the shoulder?
Yeah, so the project, the dynamic lane use, which is now the flex lane, we've started coordinating with FHWA, Federal Highway Administration, and even other states. We did talk to many other states that have implemented this, and in accordance with the regs, it does have to go through an environmental review process. It is it's a construction project, so it has to follow all the regs. But in this case, the level of environmental review is not as complex as the larger I84 improvement alternatives. So it's what we call a categorical exclusion, which allows us to go through the process a bit quicker than some of these larger projects such that would take an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement.
Great, thank you. Next one is more of a comment, I think, from Neil Hunt. So it's regarding the bike side path near exit 2. And Westcog has a project in progress to develop the abandoned railroad that parallels Mill Plain Road.
Yeah, I think we're aware of that in terms of what the city is looking at. So we continue to work with the city. I think, again, we're talking about, Mill Plain Road is state road facility. We don't have jurisdiction over the railroad. I think it's owned by Houstonic Railroad. So, we're looking at it as what we can do on state road facilities to improve connectivity and mobility. But we'll continue to work with the city. We met with them recently on that with their planning department and engineering department, and they are, for the project and moving it forward. There are a lot of challenges with it, but that's part of the process.
Thank you. At this time, I don't have any more questions typed in or any hands raised. So we will wait another minute, but maybe this is a good time to go on to how people can comment, which is the last slide in our deck, Sharat.
Yeah.
And go through that and then maybe wait another, 30 seconds or so if people are typing. So how to comment. So we did mention that there would be more ways to comment other than just this meeting today. And we're going to keep a general comment period open for about 2 weeks until July 22nd. And there's 3 different ways that anyone can comment. One is to email our general inbox, which is info@i84danbury.com. You can also go to the website, which is www.i84danbury / and click on the comment in the menu bar, and that's a form that you could fill out there as well. And then you can call a number at the Department of Transportation in Connecticut, and that's 860-594-2020, and you can leave a message at that line as well. We do ask for everyone to submit their comments within the next 2 weeks by July 22nd, and they will become part of our summary, and we will be made available on our website eventually, so you can read through them and see. And I'm glad we went to this slide because we do have one more question that came in writing that I'll read aloud now. And it's from an anonymous attendee, and it says, how does this stretch of highway compare to others within the state? That's a big question, so take it away.
Well, so in my unit here in the major highways unit, I've got a couple teams that are working on similar Pell studies in Waterbury, Hartford. We just finished that one up. We've got a few on I-95 in Stanford, Greenwich, and Fairfield, Bridgeport. Each one is kind of unique, but if I had to compare it, yeah, you're talking about a very tight corridor in terms of just from a geometric standpoint, right? The lanes, we talk about lane continuity. We don't have that issue on 95 as much, but we did have it in Hartford. And you talk about some of the geometric considerations. If you think about Hartford stretched through the downtown area with the very sharp geometric curves, that tend to, create problems similarly. So, each one of these is unique. I do think that lane continuity is an issue here throughout the corridor that creates a lot of that congestion. We know the geometry is definitely an issue, and obviously the left hand. We don't really have I'm trying to think of the other major studies that we have ongoing. The left hand exits is not as much as prevalent. Waterbury does have some of those left hand exits, and we are also similarly removing those left hand exits and entrance ramps in Waterbury. So it's very similar to that case. So I don't know if that answered your question. It's, obviously the folks here, that come to our meetings that have provided us that information. It's been valuable in trying to really assess the concerns in this corridor. And so I know we may have some PAC members that are on. I'm not sure. We have maybe a few. I know Westcog is on also. So thank you again for your participation over the years. As we've come to this point, I just want to remind folks again, the website, as Marcy mentioned, has a lot of good information. We've got a brand new story map that's up there to help you kind of walk through those alternatives, the range of alternatives. We will be finishing up the final, what we call the Pell report, and that'll get posted on our website also in the next few weeks.
Okay, I have one more question that has come in. How successful, and this is from Mike Chen. How successful are dynamic use lanes in other states? What are use cases?
We can, yep, I think we'll maybe tag team this one, but I mean, that's one of the things that I think we all, right off the bat, was let's take a look at these other states. We've talked to Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Sharad can probably tell you a few others here in terms of some of their case studies and what we've seen. And I think we do have some of those numbers in terms of the reduction in congestion, and even in one case they saw a reduction in a certain type of crash that was prevalent, right? When you have congestion, you have the rear end type crashes. So sure, I'll let you maybe expand on that a little bit.
Sure. So we talked to the Midwest states. Michigan has 2 facilities open. Ohio just opened one last summer, and they already had one open on 670. They just opened 275. Wisconsin has what's called the Beltline, which is about 11 miles roughly. They all have seen significant reduction in delay, and Wisconsin has also seen reduction in specific types of crashes, especially rear ends, because rear ends are the predominant crashes that occur during congestion.
Mm-hmm.
And they've seen almost 30 to 40% reduction in rear end crashes because they've been effective in the use of the shoulder. And as Kevin said, I think it's important to understand, when the shoulder should be open and when it should not be open, because it's a trigger that needs to be set. Some of the other states that have opened recently are Arizona has just opened on the Sun Belt, I think it's called. Tennessee's got something called Smart Lane. Florida just opened one. With Pennsylvania is looking at one on the right side. So there are several states. No one we've talked to. There's nothing in New England area now, but a lot of those states are seeing a big benefit in travel time. And that is the key metric that is measured across the highway to understand how predictable your travel time is to go from one point to the other. Because during congestion times, your travel times could vary. And the whole idea of providing predictability and trying to get to know how much time it's going to take to you to get from one point to the other is what is important. And that's what the dynamic lanes have provided, or they call the flex lanes, and we've been calling it the flex lanes as well, has provided to them in terms of a benefit without actually making major infrastructure improvements along the corridor.
Thanks, Shara. One more question from Micah Chen. He apologizes for so many questions. Last one. Would the lane be HOV, high occupancy vehicle, or general use when it is open?
That it will be general use. As we've looked at it, that would be the way it would be most effective for the way that we see this corridor. We really are looking for it to be a congestion benefit, and so far it would be it would make the best sense. And also it really wouldn't be able to really be enforced very well if it was HOV.
The one thing I'll add to Kevin says trucks would be prohibited on this lane, as you can see from the sign up, so no trucks will be allowed. And then we're not having a solid line to prevent you from lane changing, so people can go in and out of the lane during this stretch. It's only a 4-mile stretch, so we are going to be allowing that lane change to happen when the shoulder is open.
Yeah, and that's basically, again, because of the short stretch and how we really want it to be effective for the most amount of our traffic. So we want to have the traffic to be able to get in and out from different exits along the corridor.
Thank you. At this time, I don't have any more questions. And I know that we are starting to lose some people, understandably, and we appreciate everyone's time today. The project team will hang on for another couple of minutes, but I will now officially adjourn the meeting at 1:13. And if you'd like to hang on and something comes up, please do so. But again, thank you for joining us. Have a lovely afternoon. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Marcy.